We, a BSD team, have been working with Juniper for a while and would like to share some knowledge. Juniper basically invented network automation, as we know it. Now we are going to actually prove it. This is one of the things that really blew our mind when we first discovered that this is even a thing. Juniper operating system was made with network automation in mind. When you interact with the Juniper device gets translated to an API request. That includes working on the command line. See right here, the CLI. We are actually gonna start from the bottom and work our way up to the CLI, so you understand what's going on. First two thing we got here, these are the engines. These are the things that are actually running the actual network device. We talked about how the routing engine was separating decision-making capabilities from the data plane, which is where the packet forwarding engine was existing. The Junos operating system runs here. This runs in conjunction with FreeBSD, don't forget that. The MGD, this is a management daemon. And effectively, any type of management configuration show command, whatever operational command you gonna enter. They are gonna be processed through the management daemon. These are how we interacting with the configurational operational status of the device, but this layer right here. This is where the magic happens. Requests are coming in from all sorts of different sources. We have got the command line, we have got REST APIs, we have netconf, which we are gonna talk about later on in the skills. We have got Python, that exists on Box itself. Python is running within FreeBSD after all. So we have Python scripts that are running. And then beyond that, we have Python scripts and libraries like PyEZ, or Ruby scripts that we can develop and run as well. We have REST applications, which could even be Python after all. But this could also be something like Postman, which could also be used to test REST APIs. You notice what happens here is Ruby and Python communicate using netconf. The REST application will use REST API, which is on an HTTP or HTTPS endpoint. The command line itself, we know what command line is, but all of this gets translated into XML. The XML API exists on a Junos device, it's running within a management daemon here. So whether this is coming in remotely over network, or is being driven by the command line interface, whatever it does, it is going to be translated to XML under the hood by Juniper. So if you do say show interfaces TERS, that's very common command. To see all the interfaces statuses as well as the IP addresses, you issue that from the command line under the hood. When you press enter, it gets translated to XML request. Where the XML API receives that XML request, it goes in the MGD process to get the response. The response comes back as XML. The XML API translates back to a human-readable form, so that you can see the response of the show interfaces TERS. I know you are thinking, you are clowning me. There is no way that CLI is making XML request under the hood and getting XML data back. We're gonna to prove it to you right now. Let's bring command line right now. We will do show interfaces TERS to show you what human readable response was when I press enter here. What it's done is it's made an XML request under the hood and received XML data back. The XML API translates that into human readable format for the CLI. We can see operational statuses. We can see logical IP addresses, things that are up or down. Now you wanna see an XML, right? Check this out. If we do show interfaces TERS but we pipe this to display XML RPC and press enter. That is the command that was issued under the hood. Right here is the guts that you care about. Get interface information, then it specified the TERS option under that. And you wanna see the response, we just back out the RPC portion here and press enter, so that was piped to display XML, and now we see the XML response coming back. For each one of these interfaces, that is the command that was issued under the hood. Right here is the guts that you care about. get interface information, then it specified the TERS option under that. We typed the command here, but it was translated into XML request. The XML API pushed the data through the MGD process, got the response back, translated the XML response into human-readable format through the CLI so that you, who was working on your computer right here, you got a happy response. Now you are happy. It's amazing. This has been baked into Junos for almost 2 decades. This type of XML API functionality has been around since before network automation was even a thing, before the industry even gave us protocols like netconf and restconf. In fact, if you are familiar with netconf, all you may thought that looks ugly familiar. This XML API looks ugly familiar. That's because the XML API was exposed by Juniper using a protocol back in the day called JunoScript, and JunoScript later became the protocol that set a foundation for netconf. You guys are rolling with the OMGs right now. So that in mind, that actually brings up one important thing that we need to discuss about the XML API, and that is RPC. Remote procedure calls. RPCs are basically pre-built functions, and in the most basic examples what you may have noticed previously that they have a tag called RPC, and of course they had a closing tag called RPC. But the very basic example could be something like getConfiguration. When we are passing the tag that says getConfig, this is a pre-built functionality that tells Juniper to return the entire running configuration. So one tag or 2 tags if you have opening or closing tag is basically like a pre-built command that tells Juniper what to do in this scenario. It could be getting configuration data, it could be getting operational state information, it could be setting configurations. So learning which RPC you want to use for a given task is a very important step, and that's why I think it's worth repeating. That you can use the command line itself to find which RPC you want to issue. So for instance, show version, if I type show version and pipe that display XML RPC, I can see the RPC that I want to run right here is get software information. So when I issue the get software information RPC, I can expect this XML reply coming back to me. Now why is this important? When we are talking about network automation, when we are not going to interact with this device on a command line interface, aren't we? We are going to be scripting out this. So not only can we learn what command is a Python script we need to send to the Juniper device, we can also immediately see what the response back to us are going to be. This comes in real handy when we are doing things like configuration. So if I do show configuration interfaces gigabit Ethernet 000, and I can pipe that to display XML. Now I can see what the configuration itself is even going to look like as it's coming back to me. So if I want to make reactive Python scripts that look for things like an interface is missing a certain plan, or doesn't have an IP address, or OSPF isn't running, we can see exactly what data we need to pass out using something called XPath. XPath is relatively straightforward. If I were to write something like interfaces/interface/name, we can see all the path of interfaces, interface name, and return to me gigabit Ethernet 000. So using XPath I can get the structured data result back, pass it out and make decision of what was returned to me. That is the entire point of network automation after all. So really the point that we are trying to drive home with this juncture is that Juniper operating system has this layer, the XML API, sandwiched in between all of the interfaces that you are used to working with network devices, whether it's remotely using netconf, REST API, or the CLI itself. XML API has been running on the Juniper device, translating your request and the responses to and from XML. When we dig into remote connectivity using netconf, We are going to be passing XML request using RPC and getting XML responses back, so learning about the XML API is basically learning about documentation. You can use the XML API with that display XML or display XML RPC that's either request. And think about what request you're trying to issue and what responses you're going to get back baked directly onto the box itself, so that being introducing Juniper operating system XML API.